Hello again. So it's Chris here with Noble Savage. So I finished a video. The first video on 1619 is going to be posted tomorrow. And today's Martin Luther King Day, and I wanted to post something. I was just going to be like, well, and I'll still say it. Happy Martin Luther King Day. God bless. And my first thought was like, you're really not that important that like what you think of Martin Luther King makes any difference, to myself. I'm talking about me. But in context matters. I don't trust this like generation of cultural diaspora to represent why Martin Luther King Day is a valid national holiday. And I do think it's a valid national holiday, incredibly valid, super duper valid, and that Martin Luther King was, well, that he's not an overrated character. He's one of those rare historical characters that isn't overrated, that you could rate him higher than JFK because he doesn't have a Bay of Pigs, Martin Luther King. So let's start. So Martin Luther King was a Baptist priest for a predominantly, probably completely black church, probably 100%, because this is in the times of segregation in the South. So the culture of segregation in the South, what is that? Well, unless you've been living under a rock or aren't. Oh, yeah. And I want to say one more thing. So people in America take the image and idol of Martin Luther King for granted, and everything he stands for. And I'm glad it's something that's granted by our, mainline culture. Don't get me wrong, like it should be granted. That's what I'm basically saying. Good guy to keep in your pantheon of heroes, but other people don't have the same history, and they still have to deal with American culture. So they're going to hear this name, Martin Luther King, and it's like, okay, why is that guy important? Well, here's why. And you don't think about that as an American, that other people don't know why, that maybe even if something isn't important to you, you should be, showing it respect for the sake of other people, if you do respect it, if that's what you do believe, So what am I saying? So this guy, Martin Luther King, is a priest, a Baptist priest, in a black church during the time of segregation. So unless you lived under a rock, America had a civil war, considered the bloodiest war in its history, even though we've done bloodier things to other people. But in terms of things that happened to us, the bloodiest war in our history, a whole fight over interpretation of actually the Declaration of Independence in the Constitution, oddly enough, because all men are created equal, and then the 3/5 thing, and all that, and slavery, exactly. So obviously the North won, but the North, the culture of the North and the culture of the South weren't that different. They were always just basically separate economies, and the culture as it is today is mostly the difference between a rural and an urban culture, and development. So what? So basically, though that took place and there was a huge bloody war, and one side lost resoundingly, the culture didn't change. And so with how everything's set up, basically, they were able to set up almost the exact same situation with the slaves in terms of instead of slave plantations, they had sharecropping plantations, and people would work for basically less than what you could afford to live off of, and survive off the land of the property owner, and favors, and basically be at the whim of this property owner, and it would be black people and white people, and they encoded this into law. And due to the setup of the Constitution, things like that are possible, because federal law and state law aren't supposed to be the same. It's designed to contradict one another, so that when these conflicts erupt, there's a way to handle it, and one side can win over the other, and it still be considered a legal battle or of some sort, and not a civil war. So what? So people, when they have something in their head, it's impossible to argue with them, right? And these people believed in segregating their cultures. They believed that they had separate cultures, and that this was for the good of both, and that the cultures were racial somehow, and that was, and they called it separate but equal. And to me, that's completely insane, but I was raised in this environment. And so what? So he was a Baptist preacher in a time, for a black community, in the time where 90% or 95% of black priests were actually telling their constituents, their people that they spoke to and represented God to and all that, to support segregation and support things that, support basically screwing themselves. And so Martin Luther King's really popular now, and at the time, he was really unpopular with his own crowd. And so that's why he's such an important figure, because to me, he's a big teddy bear guy, He's this big, caring, loving guy. He's talking about how, he cares about children, and he cares about your character. And if that doesn't speak to you, there's something wrong with your communication skills, in my opinion, And so he was speaking above the horde of nonsense, even though people were telling him not to speak, and telling him that what he was saying wasn't true and no one would hear him, and he was alone in that at the time. So now we have a whole, national thing about this guy, and it's an amazing guy, and we should. I don't think every national holiday is valid, but this one's super valid and important, especially for a modern day. However, I don't necessarily trust the modern cultural diaspora to represent him well, and I just wanted to sort of say Happy Martin Luther King Day and actually talk about it. I don't like just saying happy, anything. I either, like I said, don't think it's valid and don't participate, or do. Thanks for your time. 10 minutes is enough. Have a good evening. Like and subscribe. See you later. Bye.